everyone, welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 9th of October 2023। तो आज के इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल देख लेते हैं। पहला जो है इजरायली अटैक स्ट्राइक फाउंड गाजा एज ए डेथ टोल क्लाइम्स ए सेंसस फॉर न्यू डील टाइट रूप वॉक what caused the fraud in Sikkim, how the Digital India Act will shape the future of the country's cyber landscape, then GST Council clears a few measures to boost foreign trade, then next the ISRO performs trajectory correction for Aditya L1, then SC flags need for a dependable code of police investigation, prey-based habitat dictate Asiatic wild ducks tiger coexistence। पहला जो आर्टिकल है इजरायली एयर स्ट्राइक फाउंड गाजा एज डेड टोल क्लाइम्स। Israeli battered Gaza on Sunday after suffering its bloodiest attack in decades when Hamas fighters rampaged through Israeli town, killing 600 and abducting dozens more as the spiraling violence threatened a major new war in West Asia. Israeli airstrikes hit housing blocks, tunnels, a mosque, and the homes of Hamas officials in Gaza, killing more than 370 people, including 20 children, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed mighty vengeance for this Black Day. In a sign, the conflict could spread beyond blockade. Gaza, Israeli exchanged artillery and rocket fire with the Lebanon-based Iran-backed Hezbollah militia in Alexandria. Two Israeli tourists were shot dead along with their Egyptian guide in southern Israel. Hamas gunmen were still fighting Israeli security forces 24 hours after a surprise multi-pronged assault of rocket barrages and bands of gunmen who overran army bases and invaded border towns. Israel's military, which faces questions over its failure to prevent the attack, said it had regained control of most infiltrations points along the security barriers, killed hundreds of attackers, and taken dozens more prisoners. We are going to be attacking Hamas severely, and this is going to be a long haul. An Israel military spokesperson told reporters the military said that it had deployed tens of thousands of soldiers around Gaza and was starting to evacuate was all Israelis living around the frontier of the territory. More than 20,000 Palestinians in Gaza have sought refuge in schools run by the United Nations. The United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency said the conflict would undermine US-backed moves toward normalizing relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, security realignment that could threaten Palestinian hope and self-determination and ham in Hamas main backer Iran. Then next a census for a new deal. A census for a new deal. Marcel Proust wrote, "Men their natures would not altering overnight, seek in every new order of a continuous nuance of the old. Caste and religion have remained the master cleavage of Indian politics for most of the last century. The caste survey released by Bihar government with coordinated support from the entire opposition can be described as a Faustian political move. It tries to constitute a new political opening through the instrument of an old paradigm, the unfurling of the contesting flags of caste and religious identity give the first clear shape to the ideological contours of the 2024 general election. It also firmly reinforced the role of these twin ethnic identity construction as the fundamental pillars of political mobilization. Many critics have dubbed the move as a regressive, cynical, and unimaginative, and a return to the Mandal versus Mandir politics we had supposedly left behind in 1990s. Yet this farming assumes caste and religious based identity politics to be preformed packages whose practices have remained stagnant over the last 3 decades, even as the political economy has been transformed by the liberalization model 2.0. The politics of religion and caste respond and adapt to change in the larger socio-economic structure. As the political scientist Pradeep Chibbar and Rahul Verma explain in their book Ideology and Identity, the Changing Party System of India, the majority coalition assembled by Prime Minister Narendra Modi was rooted in a novel political constituency found with the post-liberalization expansion of the middle class. The leadership of Mr. Modi for the middle class promised a firm institutionalization of their dominant and dominant norm on state intervention, material consumption, and political pride, while middle class anxieties and aspirations have long comprised a key driver of Hindu nationalist mobilization. Their concrete ideological fusions under Mr. Modi's charismatic appeal is what shaped the present political era. This was Mandir politics 2.0. Similarly, the Bihar caste survey inaugurates not the reenaction of the old Mandal politics of a narrow caste-based patronage, but the coming of age of the subordinate caste-based, class-based politics. This is also Mandal 2.0. This is new synthesization of a class politics in the familiar tapping of caste. Primarily, it seeks to tap into a frustrated and deeply felt desire held by large section of the precariat to achieve middle class status. Such a status constitutes both an economic marker and prized social status symbol. This precariat is roughly one half of the country which finds itself sandwiched between the poor and the middle class. They have been facing a stagnant trend of upward mobility inside and of an informal economy which offers little substantive protections. An estimated 75 million people, according to the Pew Research Center, slipped back into poverty during the COVID-19 pandemic. The bulk of this precariat, which can be found in rural and urban India across occupation, is composed of lower or other backward classes, Dalits and Muslims. In their book Beyond Consumption, India's New Middle Class in the Neoliberal Times, Manish K. Jha and Pushpendra chart the composition of the middle class in terms of different caste group. Briefly, 5% of upper caste fall the upper middle class segment compared to 3% of OBC and 1.4% of Dalits. These variations are significant and happen pyramidically. The gaps are also straighter in Hindi belt states of Uttar Pradesh in Bihar and Bihar where upper caste dominance is more entrenched. Such status inequality also tend to be much higher among Hindus than among other religious groups. For instance, Muslim OBC from a form a larger portion of both upper class and middle class segment compared to Muslim upper caste. The coalition of the precariat depends on the glue of the enlarged ethnic bloc such as the OBC because it can hardly be called an abstract or a universal idea. Simply put, the precariat does not possess the symbolic capital to do so. The French socialist Bureau Bourdieu defined symbolic capital as the capacity to save the perception of social reality. This allows certain dominant groups to impose a particular vision of the world in the name of universal truth. Such influence is wielded largely by the Hindu middle class. Meanwhile, members of the precariat, such as the deeply fragmented and unprivileged OBC, possesses few of these social, culture, and ideological resources. They prefer to articulate their own politics of upward mobility in terms of concrete caste identities which draw on an alternative symbolic capital of their experience of the caste and historical memories of struggle. It is, of course, important to acknowledge the considerable failure of Mandal politics in the Hindi belt. Unlike in southern India, caste politics in the north made no substantive dent on the political economy or institutions of power and governance or even on poverty reduction. It was too focused on building patronage based short term electoral coalition rather than building a road or durable political constituency as did the successful Dravidian movement in Tamil Nadu. Yet to be fair to the Kerala and Tamil Nadu, it was enacted at a time when their underprivileged support-based had a relatively modest economic and cultural capital. Thus, the acquisition of political capital, which Kansi Ram called the master key for the acquisition of the other resources, required innovative and often unsavory means pan-India consensus. This is time around the progressive politics of caste seems to have generated a far border political parties supporting the caste census command a combined vote share in the national election that exceed the vote share of the ruling BJP, which awkwardly holds on to an ambiguous stance on the issue. These parties include not just the Congress and the India Alliance constituency, but also the bulk of unaligned parties such as YSR Congress Party, the in Telugu Desam Party, the Bharat Rashtra Samiti, and Biju Janata Dal in all region of India. Caste politics has clearly sustained legitimacy as an instrument of popular mobilization, vernaculizing the norms, Lucia mutilates and democratizing of social base of politics. Yogendra Yadav such a large scale and pan-India consensus is fairly rare and reflect the expanded range of possibilities for the progressive politics of caste. Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, which facilitated an unprecedented expansion of American middle class in 1930s and 1940s and lifted a working class ravaged by the Great Depression, was a radical institutional solution. It was essentially a political strategy to build a cross-ethnic coalition of working class white voters whose precarity had been intensified by the Great Depression. This coalition included low-status recent immigrants of Irish, Italian, and East European descent mobilized to localized patronage-based politics, machine politics. The politics of New Deal made use of some of these grimy mobilizing mechanisms but went beyond it to evolve into an institutional remaking of American capitalism. There was a systemic shift in the economic regime to the benefit of workers. The popularity of the New Deal made Roosevelt the only president to serve four consecutive terms. This is not to make comparison but only to highlight that ethnic and class politics can work complementary to one another as yet and only at a starting stage. The politics of caste survey emphasizes gender hug and rights proportionate to population and an institutionally negotiated and distribution of resources. One reason why Mandal politics eventually dissolved into narrow caste formation was the splitting of the system of farmer politics from the erstwhile bloc of socialist politics and later the rupture of lower OBC from the others. Yet as Anthony Gideon has argued, social actor like ethnicity or caste content purposive agents not autonomous directed by an external structure or a false consciousness. The political elites such as the Jat in Haryana and Maratha in Maharashtra have begun to shun exclusivity strategies and gravitate towards a larger OBC platform. This could be seen in the farmers' agitation and the Maratha Kunbi Kota stay Sharad Pawar in Maharashtra. It is also possible that sections of lower OBC may also re-evaluate the returns in terms of economic mobility and social prestige of choosing a political Hindu platform as opposed to an OBC platform. Then next a tightrope walk. Tightrope walk. The decision of the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee to leave interest rate unchanged even as the central bank warned of the major risk that the high inflation poses to microeconomic stability is a clear sign that monetary authorities find themselves caught in a cleft stick after a relatively benign first quarter when the headline retail inflation averaged 4.63% as against the RBI's projection of 4.6% price gain measured by the consumer price index. accelerated sharply in the last quarter with July and August seeking readings of 7.44% and 6.83% respectively in a tactic tacit acknowledgement of its misjudgment of inflationary trends. The MPC last week it raised its projection for average second quarter inflation by 20 basis points from the August forecast of 6.2% and 6.4%, and even this projection appears overly optimistic if one considers that the headline number will need to have slowed drastically to less than 5% in September for RBI's prognosis to be validated. For now, the MPC is hoping that the recent reduction in domestic LPG price combined with a lowering of vegetable prices would provide some near-term respite to price pressures. Governor Shaktikant Das underlined the RBI willingness to resort to open market operations, sell the sale of securities to stock out excess funds from the system of if it sees reason to believe that liquidity may be rising to a level where it could undermine the overall monetary policy stance. The RBI unwillingness to walk the talk and raise interest rates further, even while reiterating the threat to overall economic stability from unmoored inflation expectations, reflect an unstated concern that the growth momentum still remains rather tenuous. The recent debate on the integrity of NSO's data on economic growth estimates that concerns on estimates and concerns that the methodology used to project 7.8% real GDP growth in the first quarter may have given rise to an overestimation have to be seen in tandem with economic forecasters increased caution over India's GDP growth outlook for the current fiscal year. Mr. Das acknowledged the weakness of India's goods export and the uneven monsoon, which has also led to a drop in Kharif showing of crucial oilseed and pulses a key risk to the RBI's projection for 6.5% GDP growth in financial 24. With the rupee already having weakened by about 0.7% since the last policy meeting in August, RBI also runs the risk of importing inflation and adding to the external sector vulnerabilities if it fails to raise interest rate. Then, what caused the flood in Sikkim? More than 25 people have been confirmed dead, and many more are missing from a massive flood that resulted from Glacier Lake outburst in Sikkim in the early hours of October 4. The voluminous overflow has destroyed the Chungthang Dam, which is critical to the Tista 3 hydropower project and rendered several hydropower projects along the river dysfunctional. What is a glacier lake outburst? Technically called a glacier lake outburst flood. These are instances of large lake formed from the melting of a glacier suddenly breaking free of their moraine natural dams that are formed from rock sediment and other debris. The South Lohtok Glacier, located in North Sikkim, is reportedly one of the fastest retreating glacier. The glacier receded nearly 2 kilometers in 46 years from 1962 to 2008. It further retreated by minus 400 meters from 2018 to 2019. There are an estimated 7,500 glaciers in the Himalayas, and GLOFs have been associated with major disasters through the years. A report in the journal Nature counts in the 1926 Jammu and Kashmir deluge, the 1981 Kinnaur Valley flood in Himachal Pradesh, and the 2013 Kedarnath outburst in Uttarakhand as examples of a Gulf-related disaster. Among the Himalayan states in India, Sikkim has about 80% glacier, more than any other state over the years. Climatologists have warned that They could be responsible for lake outburst. There could be um, responsible for lake outburst. What triggered the Sikkim Gulf event? There is a uncertainty of on this point. Satellite image from the National Remote Sensing Center, India Space Research Organization, suggests around 105 hectare, about 1 square kilometer of glacier-fed lake has been drained out. This was on comparing images taken on September 28 when the lake spanned 167 hectare and on October 4, the night of the disaster, when it is shrunk to 62 hectare on September 17. It was 162 hectares. A satellite image do not reveal the depth of the lake. Calculating the volume of water in the lake is challenging without physically visiting the place. According to Kalachand Sen, Director GST Adila Institute of Himalayan Geology, however, water monitoring apparatus maintained by the Central Water Commission report that water levels surged nearly 60 feet above the maximum levels at the Changalang at 1:30 p.m. and gushed at the nearly 55 kilometers. This is at the very least thousands of cubic meters of water in a short time, and being midnight gave very little lead to time for the people downstream to react. The National Disaster Management Agency reports that the primary reason for the sudden surge appears to be a likely combination of excess rainfall and a Gulf event. The lake is at a height of a Gulf event. This lake is at a height of 5,200 meters with a towering ice-capped features at about 6,800 meters to the north of the north of and in close proximity to the lake. There is speculation that heavy rainfall might have tipped the moraine to collapse and it triggered the fault by but meteorological records do not reveal any evidence of such heavy rains. There was heavy rain in South Sikkim, but nothing remarkable in northern regions. M. Mahapatra, Director General, India Meteorological Department, told the Hindu, but on the other hand, we do not really know at such a height. There is no monitoring of rainfall. There is also suggestion that a series of earthquakes in Nepal on October 3 in the afternoon whose tremors jolted several in the Delhi National Capital Region might have played a role. There were two tremors in the afternoon and aftershocks until at about 9 p.m. on the 3rd. The distance until Lonak Lake is about 700 kilometers, and so it is theoretically possible that this could be a trigger, said Mr. Stalin. But without a deeper study, it is all speculation. The inaccessibility of terrain makes ground observation that provide inclusive proof difficult, he added. What was the resulting damage? The most visible consequence of the flooding was the destruction of the Chuntang dam, though not a storage dam, it directs water to power the Tista 3 hydro project. The executive chairman of Sikkim Urja, which runs the project, is quoted as saying the dam was washed away in 10 minutes. A senior official in CWC says that the dam is significantly damaged and the quantity of the silt and water present made it difficult to estimate the extent of damage. On Thursday, Pankaj Agrawal, Secretary Ministry of Power convened an emergency meeting to ascertain damage to project operated by the National Hydropower Corporation (NHPC). All bridges downstream to the Tista V hydropower station were submerged or water washed out, disrupting communication. The flood water overtopped the dam of the Tista V power station, all connecting roads to the project sites as well as part of the residential colony have been severely damaged. The power ministry said in a statement, presently the power station is short, not generated any electricity. The Tista 3 power project is not operated by the NHPC. The NHPC employee at Tista IV power station who lost his life. All of the organization Organizations, other personnel at the site were safe. Work on the under construction Tista VI 500 megawatt of the NHPC were disrupted with water entering into the powerhouse and a transform. The state government has set up 26 relief camps in 4 affected districts. The Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority said on Thursday with at least 1,025 people taking shelter in the 8 relief camps in Gangtok district. The states with 8 bridges getting washed away in the Manas and Mangan district along the 2 bridges were destroyed in Namchi and one in Gangtok. Water pipelines, sewage lines, and 277 houses have been destroyed in the 4 most affected districts of Mangan, Gangtok, Pakyong, and Namchi. The next, digital how the Digital India Act will shape future of the country. Nations worldwide are grappling with the need to update their legal framework to adapt to the evolving digital landscape. India, with its ambitious Digital India initiative, is no exception. The recent announcement of the Digital India Act 2023 represents a significant step towards establishing a future-ready legal framework for the country's burgeoning digital ecosystem. Moving with the time, the DIA poised to replace the 2-decade-old Information Technology Act of 2000 IT Act is designed to address the challenges and opportunities presented by the dramatic growth of the Internet and emerging technologies. It is imperative to understand the key aspect of this legislation and why it is essential in the contemporary context. The primary motivation behind the DIA is to bring India's regulatory landscape in synchronization with the digital revolution of 21st century. The IT Act of 2000, crafted during a time when the internet was in its infancy, has struggled to keep pace with the rapid changes in the technology and user behavior. Since its inception, India's internet user base has exploded from a mere 5.5 million to a staggering 850 million. The nature of the internet usage has also evolved with the emergence of various intermediaries and the proliferation of new forms of user harms such as cyberstalking, trolling, and doxing. The DIA recognizes these changes and aims to provide a comprehensive legal framework to address them. Key provisions: the DIA encompasses several pivotal clauses that mirror the dynamic evolution of the digital environment, addressing its multifaceted challenges and opportunities. These provisions underscore the legislation's responsiveness to the ever-changing digital landscape. The proposed DIA encompasses a spectrum of significant provisions aimed at addressing the ever-evolving digital landscape. Firstly, it places a strong emphasis on online safety and trust with a commitment to safeguarding citizens' rights in the digital realm while remaining adaptable to shifting market dynamics and international legal principles. Secondly, recognizing the growing importance of a new age technology such as an artificial intelligence and blockchain, and the DIA provides guidelines for their responsive utilization, though this city aims to not only can encourage the adaptation of this technology but also to ensure that their deployment is in line with the ethical and legal principles. This means that the DIA does not just leave it to the market to dictate the course of this technology but actively engages in shaping their development and use within a regulatory framework, and by doing so the DIA strikes a balance between fostering innovation and safeguarding against potential harms. It promotes ethical AI practices data privacy in blockchain application and mechanism for accountability in the use of this technology. For this forward-looking stance is not only beneficial for citizens and businesses but also positions India as a responsible player in the global technology landscape, ready to harness the full potential of new age technology while mitigating associated risks. Thirdly, it upholds the concept of an open internet, striking a balance between accessibility and necessary regulations to maintain order of and protect users. Additionally, the DIA mandates a stringent know your customers requirement for wearable devices accompanied by criminal law sanctions. Lastly, it contemplates a review of the safe harbor principle, which presently shields online platform from liability related to user-generated content, indicating a potential shift in online accountability standards. These provisions underscore the proposed DIA's commitment in addressing the complexities of the digital age. The myriad challenges, while the introduction of the DIA is commendable steps towards addressing the challenges of the digital age. There are certain aspects that warrant a critical evaluation. One key concern is the potential impact on innovation and the ease of doing business. Stricter regulations, particularly in emerging technology, could inadvertently self-stiffly entrepreneurial initiatives and deter foreign investment. Additionally, the review of the safe harbor principle, which shield online platform from liability for user-generated content, could lead to a more cautious approach among these platforms, so possibly impinging, impinging on freedom of expression. Furthermore, the DIS success hinges on effective enforcement, which will require substantial resources exercised in the infrastructure, balancing the interests of various stakeholders, including tech giants, while ensuring the protection of citizens. Citizen rights poses significant challenges. Therefore, while the DIA is progressive of its implementation and potential repercussion warrant vigilant monitoring and adaptability to avoid unintended consequences. The DIA is a crucial step towards ensuring a secure, accountable, and innovative digital future for India. It represents a forward-looking approach to the regulation in an age of constant changes and has the potential to shape the country's digital landscape for generations to come. As consultation continue, it will be interesting to see how this proposed legislation evolves and plays out in the dynamic digital arena. Then GST Council clears a few measures to boost foreign trade. Amid the sustained slump in India's export, the Goods and Service Tax Council has cleared a few measures to boost foreign trade, including enabling tax credits for services exports receiving payment in rupees, critical for trade with countries such as Iran and Russia that face global sanctions. The government has been pushing for rupee-based trading arrangement with several countries to reduce the dependence on US dollar, and banks from over 20 nations have opened a special rupee INR through account with Indian banks to remit payment for their imports from India. However, many exports of such services were being denied input tax credit under the GST regime as the norm required foreign currency receipts to recognize the export status. The council has recommended to issue a circular to clarify the admissibility of export remittances received in special INR through accounts as permitted by the Reserve Bank of India for the purpose of consideration of supply of services to qualify as the export of service under the Integrated GST Act of 2017, the Finance Minister said in a statement after Saturday's meeting of the GST Council. Some dispute. There were disputes arising from the refund application where the GST officials would seek to deny the benefit on ground that receipts of the consideration in INR did not meet the conditions prescribed for the purpose of qualifying as exports of service, explained Sanjay Sabria, Director Indirect Tax at NextDigim. Thus, clarifications will bring respite to the exporters whose refunds of GST were stuck for a long time on account of the dispute in respect of these particular aspects, and they were also being subjected to GST demands, said Saurabh Agrawal, tax partner at EY. Relief for ACZ supply. Separately, the council also decided to undo the effects of July 31st notification that had made it difficult for firms supplying goods and services to special economic zones to claim tax refunds, with the explicit inclusion of such supplies for the rebate. The ambiguity of this comes to a rest and helps prevent apprehended potential working capital concerns for domestic industry engaged in SEZ supply, remarked Abhishek Jain, indirect tax head and partner at KPMG. The council has recommended issuance of a circular to clarify the place of supply treatment for services entailing transportation of goods in cases where the location of supplier of the location of recipient of service is outside India. ISRO performs a trajectory correction for Aditya L1. The Indian Space Research Organization ISRO has performed a trajectory correction maneuver on Aditya L1 spacecraft, which is headed to Lagrangian 1 point between Sun and Earth. The Space Organization on Sunday said the maneuver was performed on October 6 and the spacecraft was in good condition. The spacecraft is healthy and on its way to Sun Earth L1. The trajectory correction maneuver TCM originally provisioned was performed on October 6, 2023 for about 16 seconds. The ISRO said the space agency said the maneuver was performed to correct the trajectory evaluated after tracking the trans-Lagrangian point 1 insertion maneuvers performed on September 19. It was needed to correct the trajectory evaluated after tracking the trans-Lagrangian point 1 insertion maneuver performed on September 19, 2023. TCM measures that the spacecraft is on its intended path towards the hollow orbit insertion around L1. The space agency said on September 19 the ISRO carried out the TL-11 maneuver to send towards L1. The TL-1I maneuver marked the beginning of the Aditya L1's 110-day journey towards the L1 point, which lies between the Sun-Earth line. L1 is about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, and the distance of L1 from Earth is approximately 1% of the Earth's sun distance. India's first solar observatory mission Aditya L1 was launched on September 2 by the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. The ISRO said that as Aditya L1 continues to move ahead, the magnetometer payload will be turned on again within a few days. The magnetometer payload is developed at the Laboratory for Electro-Optics System, Bangalore, and is capable of measuring interplanetary magnetic field at the L1 point. Aditya L1 is expected to arrive at the L1 point by January. The नेक्स्ट जो दो आर्टिकल हैं ये थोड़ा आप लोग देख लीजिएगा. पहला जो है सुप्रीम कोर्ट फ्लैग्स needs for dependable code of police investigation, then prey base habitat dictate Asiatic study. So this is all for today, friends. So we will meet from tomorrow onwards with new news articles from the Hindu newspaper. So thank you all. Thanks a lot.